All right, welcome in. Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back
Hello.
to Dinosaur Omelette Land. Ma'am, what's your name?
I'm Angela.
Angela, and I'm Christopher. I'm setting up my camera and my hopefully comments. Cool, good stuff. Working on the iPhone. Welcome in tonight, guys. The apocalypse is on the way. We're talking about the after the collapse scenario. There's no feed, no stores, no help. Am I going to be able to keep my chickens alive? Drama. Is that dramatic enough? I usually don't do a dramatic entry, but I usually do educational stuff. And this is actually going to be educational. So what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about, can you self-sustain on your own homestead and keep your beasts living and thriving? We're going to talk about that, their caloric needs, their micronutrient needs, history, and a lot of cool stuff. And very light mathematics, just numbers that are going to be very easy to understand. So you have a little bit of a what do you call it? So you understand what's going on. Yeah, concept. Yeah. My brain's empty. I've been thinking all day. Oops. Anyway, welcome, guys. I'm Christopher.
I'm Angela.
Dinosaur Omelette is the name of our homestead. Now, our history, I'm not going to get into that, but what do we raise? Quail.
So we do raise jumbo wild or Pharaoh Coturnix quail, specifically because they're ideal for egg production. They lay the largest variety of eggs with quail, and also they grow very quickly and can be used for meat. So they're great animals to have for meat and eggs.
Indeed they are.
And then we also have silkies, which we call affectionately the Dino Puff silkies. And we raise them and sell young hens as pets.
Angela. Yeah. So Angela raises them as her pets. You know, this looked really nice when I got it, and it just faded. I'm so upset. I got to call the printer. Anyway, yeah, so we do jumbo Coturnix quail, which are fabulous small homestead meat producers and egg producers. Not that they're small in their production, but you don't need a lot of space for them. I always encourage you guys to check them out. Check the description for, what's that? Free stuff, free information. That's right. That's right. Free. You know, this thing is very, very beneficial. It's a Q&A. I always talk about it because it's one of the pieces of printed material I have over here, which is how to raise these quail with zero background. So you'll grow the animals and they should do well if you just follow the directions, kind of like building a piece of IKEA furniture.
I suppose so.
I suppose so.
So yeah, we like to encourage people to learn skills. This lesson tonight, you know, it would involve skills if you were to be feeding your chickens and quail, nourishing them through, you know, sustenance that you would produce.
Yep.
That would require skill. But anyway, we like to encourage people to learn skills and grow their own food if they can, and do get the family involved as well.
Yes, indeed. Fixing my camera. All right, couple things before I begin. Actually, one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an entertainment channel, not to be taken as veterinary advice or medical advice for your birds. Please, any information you hear here, it's not advice for you, for your care for your animals. Do your due diligence, call your veterinarian, and do not rely on internet people for the well-being and care of your creatures. Cool. All right, I'm segueing into what we're discussing tonight, which is, anybody out there a prepper, kind of crazy in the head like me? You know, you have a background where you're interested in what if. Tommy, great. I hope you are. Hey, buddy, are you a prepper too? Well, anyway, so I have a background. Like, if you notice, I wear knives. It's not just handsome jewelry like we're going out to dinner. These are utilitarian items. And, you know, doing this whole prepper thing, you get, what do you call it? You know, you develop different skills and skill sets doing different things. And I've been doing this for many years, 25, 30 years, a long time. Since I was 20, actually, when I was 16 or 15, I remember walking to the grocery store and saying, "Hey, Mr. Grocer, I've noticed your store has an abundance of organized items here. How do you do that? How do you make sure these things are always in stock? Like, this doesn't make any sense." Even at the time when I was a kid, it seemed rather perplexing. How are you able to facilitate the distribution of so many different goods and always have them there. So that got my kind of mind started on that whole self-sufficiency thing, because then you realize that whole transportation model and distributions model, it's very robust, but it also has criticalities. And at any time it can decompose or break down or monkey wrench into the system, a la coronavirus days when you shut everything down. And you can have a cascading effect where distribution of goods and services may be affected. You may start losing some or all of a particular product or class of products, toilet paper. And in this case, we're going to be talking about feed. I don't know what hideous event is the hypothesis here. Maybe the zombies ate the truckers or something. But any kind of catastrophe. Now, I don't want to, I have no suspicion that there's going to be a complete collapse of anything, right? But it is possible that you could see price increases where you want to start producing your own food, supplementing. And that's always a good idea. I mean, even right now, people are having economic trouble. So supplementation of foodstuffs, animal feeds, or even learning skills so you're not paying somebody else, like mechanic skills, etc. Mm-hmm. These are all prepper mindset types of things. Learning a skill is a core tenet of being prepared.
And having greater understanding, no matter what the topic is, it does bring some sort of peace to the mind, because when we have lots of unanswered questions, then for many of us that can cause, mild anxiety or even more than. So when you have at least a somewhat understanding of something that maybe you would be concerned about potentially, then you'll feel better, you'll feel more assured, and you can prepare yourself or create some sort of plan. It just gives you perspective too.
Right. Excellent. That's pretty true. What's your number one skill after the nukes pop off and it's fallout? Like, we're in the wasteland. You're gonna have mutant puppy chickens, I guess.
I don't know. I'd have to put some thought into that because there's a lot of different things that would factor into how whatever your skill is would be affected.
So yeah, and in conclusion, like the whole prepper mindset, I think there was a stigma about it, like you were like a basement dwelling, shotgun yielding lunatic. And some of them are, but some of them are like system theorists, like myself. We sit around going like, let's take a look at the architecture of this system and how it's interconnected and see where the redundancies are and the weaknesses are. That's the kind of lunatic I am. Sometimes I sit in the basement clutching a shotgun, but most of the time I'm systems theory oriented about this kind of stuff. Okay, let's move in. Ma'am, would you mind bringing in my delightful chart? I know. I have a whiteboard. It's worse in high school, right? Hold on, let me get a pointer stick. Always forget that thing.
I don't know what you disappeared.
Here's one. Ruler. Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Oh, it's shifted. There's a shift.
It's fine.
Is it crooked?
No, it's just not tight. Let's move this in. Please bear with me. We're dealing with high-tech stuff here. This is the pinnacle of 1960s technology.
I think it needs to.
It's fine. I'll tilt my camera down. Like I said, 1960s technology. Let me move this forward. This is, I'm going to walk you through this. I don't expect you to see it too clearly. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. After the collapse, how am I feeding my chickens? Guys, here are the top three concerns with feeding your chicken beast or quails. Okay, same with the quail. They're very similar physiology. However, the metabolic expenditure of the quail is it's higher. They're burning more calories per weight, and they have a little bit greater needs for that. Okay, and if you have any questions, drop them in comments. Even if you're not live, I always get these. And if you have some snarky comment, leave it in there too, because I like the engagement. Want to make fun of my hat? Go right ahead. All right, I reckon after the collapse, what happened? Well, I don't know. The zombies ate all the truckers. I can't get my feed, and the farmers turn into the zombies. Farmers turn into the zombies, and they have a taste for truckers. It's the worst possible scenario for producing animal feed.
Crop, yes.
So that was the scenario that I just thought of at the top of my head. So how am I going to feed my chickens? What are the three major nutrient concerns that we're thinking about? Calories in, food production. Calcium, because these hens, they need calcium. That's a constant need. And the limiting amino acids. which we can go back to. They're slightly connected to calories. Calories, obviously, we all are familiar with them. We eat quite a bunch of them. We gain weight in the winter because of them. We're about to do that now. Calcium is important for your chicken, obviously, because of the eggshell, right? So we're producing eggshell and other, their bone structures, right? Their bones are absorbing calcium. And the limiting amino acids. So if you aren't familiar with that term, primarily methionine and lysine, these are amino acids that need to be present in your bird's diet. They're called limiting amino acids because they limit the potential use of otherwise met amino acid needs. Okay, so they may have all the other amino acids over here in their diet, but they don't have the sufficient methionine or lysine. Well, without them, it limits the bird's ability to use the other amino acids in the.
Is it helping? Are these two things helping the digestion and use, I guess, of these nutrients and ingredients and such?
It's a base of a protein for sure. Yeah, because it's going through the whole body.
I just say because you mentioned that without these things, they're not able to really.
Well, they can use the calories. Calories are burning. It's the other amino acids when you're building structures. So you'll have a collapse. If they're not getting sufficient methionine and lysine, they're not going to be able to form eggs, egg cells. They're going to have problems, even though it's calcium, but they're going to have problems with forming their egg. And
it kind of makes the whole system break down slightly.
Digestion and a whole bunch of problems.
Okay.
All right. So why is this important? Because if we're not getting feed that's supplemented with these compounds, we need to produce it ourselves. We're going to go into that. So, you know what? I'm going to look at my notes too. Can you hold this? I don't need that. I'm going off the top of my head. So what do chickens eat? Oh, this is cool. So chickens in a day, a laying hen is going to guzzle down about 320 calories. That's right, 320 calories. And I did some mathematics. They have a high metabolism compared to human pound for pound. Now, if the chicken, like a 15 or a 150 pound human, they require, I guess, about 1,800 calories, okay, for the metabolic baseline, so the body can function. Burning calories, doing that. The chicken, if it weighed 150 pounds instead of whatever, what is their weight, like a few pounds, 6 pounds, 8 pounds, they'd be eating about 11,000 calories. So huge, huge, huge difference. About 6 times the amount. So they have a 6x metabolic expenditure compared to the human.
Definitely a lot more if it were 150 pounds.
Yeah, so it's a lot of burn for that critter. But they have high body heat. They're producing an egg. These are all very expensive. And they're costly animals, metabolically speaking, to keep nourished. And the trucks stopped coming, so now I got to feed them off of my own land. This is my little garden. I'll put my stick. My little garden. I can think of so many words except for illustration. My drawing.
Oh.
It's like I can talk, and then when the simplest word is required, I'm like, duh. All right, so.
No, I know what you mean.
Here's my
Me too.
little garden drawing. And I'm going to go over what we're hypothetically going to be growing. I kept everything as simple as possible. And my goal here is for you guys not to use this as a one-for-one plan to go get ready for the bombs to start dropping. It's to give you an idea about the labor intensity, the amount of resources that are required, the amount of acreage that is required to grow food for a flock of 10 hens. And
this is so that they're still laying eggs and their needs are being met. Yeah. This isn't barely keeping them alive and they've stopped laying eggs. Just to be clear.
Yeah, you can barely keep them alive, but you want to feed them and keep them functioning. So why can't I just free range? This is like a question I thought would be one of the big questions. And somebody's watching me and like, this idiot don't know what he's talking about. My chickens are just free range. No, they won't. Now I'll tell you why. We have a perception of reality based on our day-to-day and what we kind of retain into our brain. I see my chickens moving around all day. I see them eating all day. I'm seeing they're pretty efficient. They don't stop. I bet they're eating and they're going to get all their needs. They won't. The chickens we keep, they'll get, depending on the land they have access to and the resources in that land, about 20 to 30% of their needs in an optimal season, summertime, big grassy field, lots of bugs. Okay, the chickens, they are good at scavenging and scratching and finding resources, but it's not going to be enough. Now, why is that? Why can't I just let them free range? They're not going to be getting enough. Why isn't it? In the old days,
like the 1800s.
like that's the old days.
Yeah. Give perspective.
In the old days, your chickens could free range, but wait a minute. Didn't you just say, what is this idiot conflicting himself? Didn't you say you can't free range? I did. You can't free range chickens in the new days because chickens today are not the same organism.
To clarify, you can't free range them and expect they're going to get proper nutrients and nutrition and daily needs met. They will free range, but they're not going to get enough sustenance from it.
Yes, I'm
nowadays.
Sorry. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about in the context of getting full sustenance. You can't. So why can't you free range chickens today, but you used to? Well, back in the old days, 150, 200 years ago, people kept chickens. They've been keeping chickens forever, but they were not the variety and the domesticated varieties we keep today. There's only one wild chicken, the Gallus gallus. It lives in Java or Indonesia, way out there in the middle of nowhere. And all the domesticated chickens are descended and bred from that. They're called Gallus domesticus. In these breeds of chickens, before what we have today, like what do we have?
Rhode Island Reds.
So these are high metabolic, high output animals. They're producing 200-300 eggs a year, right? They get big and meaty if they're dual purpose, and you have a lot of flesh on these animals. So they require a lot of day-to-day nutrition and calories to hold that giant structure up. Back in the olden days, families and homestead, they kept chickens. And they free ranged them, and they didn't supplement their feed. They weren't buying feed. They would let their chickens feed themselves on the free range. Now, why did this work? It is because those chickens were smaller birds. They're called land race birds. Land, like land, race, like in a vroom vroom race car. Land race birds. And there are different varieties of these. These are domesticated birds, but their behaviors and mannerisms were more feral and wild-like, where they were scavenging throughout the day. And many times they weren't even kept in a coop. They just roosted up in a tree.
And their form was also different, more comparative to like a game bird. So they were leaner, not plump. They were not laying eggs year-round, or even a lot of eggs. It was, what was it?
50 or 60
to 100 eggs, and only in the prime time season of the year. So they would not be laying eggs during the cold seasons.
Families back then did not have a refrigerator with 2 giant cartons of eggs. But they were smaller people. Anyhow, well, the humans, they have a different physiology, obviously. So they were eating these high-calorie foods for back-breaking labor out in their fields. So they could feed themselves. Anyhow, moving on. So today we couldn't simply free-range birds and expect them to meet all of their nutrient needs to be optimized, especially for egg output and meat production, simply because the breeds that we have now are designed around the feed. For example, the cob variety and the large broiler birds, they're specifically bred and designed around the growing infrastructure, which is kind of neat. It's like, in other words, they figured out how to produce a lot of food, and then they designed an animal that would be able to efficiently use that food production system. And that's the, what is it, Cobb 500? Is that what it is? The variety,
the technical
the Tyson birds, the big birds that are used.
But then also,
that's an extreme example.
Was it just the difference in the breed or the physique of the birds or the behaviors? But the land itself was different then than it is now.
That's quite right. Yes.
So the land, I mean, it was much more undisturbed. The nutrients that they weren't using pesticides, herbicides, the nutrient density in the plant life itself was higher, and also there's many more insects available because they weren't being their habitat wasn't being disturbed. The ground wasn't compacted so much, so there's just a lot more living there
Yeah, if you watch a regular family with their chickens free ranging out in the yard, they're usually in the grass.
Manicured yard.
working in grass yards.
Yeah.
So that's why we can't really rely on that today as a method for fully meeting the needs of the bird. So moving on, what happened? What did I say the scenario was? The farmers
turned zombie and attacked the truck
and the
drivers.
zombies ate the truckers. So we have two critical components of our feed distribution destroyed, the distribution and the production. So we're on our own, and we need to start producing our own feed. All right. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in and let me know. So what we're going to do is look at crop growing and what crops we're growing. Again, this is a very simple explanatory example. So we talked about our chickens needing about 1/4 pound of food. I don't know if I mentioned that. So 310, 330 calories per day per laying hen, which is going to include not just calories, but calcium and these limiting amino acids. If you extrapolate that for 10 hens, which is going to be our example, that 1/4 pound of food for 10 hens for an entire year, 365 days, is going to be about 700 to 730 pounds of feed that we're growing.
Per bird?
No, for the 10
Oh, okay.
per year.
Okay.
Now, wow, so are we going to talk about the entire process? Briefly. One, your need to acquire seed to grow. So you're talking, a few pounds for each variety of seeds just to grow. 5, 10, depends on your plot of land and the size you're doing. And you're going to need to, after harvest, seed collect for the next year and so on and so forth. You're going to need the acreage. You're going to need proper soil. So the reason this is a fantasy, people often talk about these collapse scenarios and, I'll just do this or I'll just do that. On paper, it sounds pretty easy, but in practice, it's a lot more work because there's a lot more than just putting seeds in the earth and then coming back in a few months and picking something. Mm-hmm. It's really a everyday job attending to these fields, especially in the beginning and towards the end of the harvest. So you need to do, and a lot of preparation, preparing the soil, reading the soil, and understanding what you're growing in. So you're going to be getting your grounds ready. I'm not going to be giving instructions on how to grow, but just some basic stuff that you need to be aware of. So it's not, I'll be fine. I bought some seeds on the internet. No, it's really a skill set and a skill development. Like if we're relying on me to grow the food, we're all starving to death. That's not my forte. I mean, I can grow stuff, but not like actual good gardeners. So what are we looking at? 10 birds needing about 730 or 700 pounds of food there and or about. We're going to be growing 3 different crops. And we're going to require, for this example, we're growing corn, soybean, and a mixture of grains, wheat, oat, and barley. Corn, soybean, wheat, oat, barley. Little note about soybean. Anybody know about soybean? What's very, very important about soybean if you're feeding it to a chicken? Do you know?
Well, it needs to be roasted.
That's it. It needs to be roasted.
Or what was it, soaked?
No, you got to roast them.
Oh, no, it was sprouted.
Yeah.
It was,
So
but yeah, they need to be roasted.
Soybean contains, if you ever have soybean in a chicken feed, it'll have a nutty smell from being cooked. It needs to be roasted because there are anti-nutrients or binding nutrients inside of the soybean. That's for the bean, not for the chicken. And so when it gets into the chicken, it inhibits the absorption of nutrients and it inhibits other cellular function or digestive function in the bird, and it can become very problematic. So you never want to feed raw soybeans, or really any raw beans, but particularly raw soybean to a chicken. Most luckily, when you order them or buy them, they're going to be roasted. But if you're growing them, that's a logistical concern. You're going to need, that's a whole energy concern and another output. Mm-hmm. But the soybean is good for lysine and protein. So it's a beneficial thing to have. That's why a lot of feeds use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the high protein.
Okay, I want to talk about, this is the yield you're going to be getting from your 0.3 acres. I'm going to run through these numbers quick because I know numbers bore the H out of people. We're growing 400 pounds of corn to satisfy 10 hens. This is over the course of a year, what they're going to be consuming. We require about 4,200 feet, 0.1 acre. Soybean, 162 pounds. Wheat barley mix, 110 pounds. Total of all this is about 670 to 700 pounds. And it's going to require a third, or 0.3 acres, almost a third of an acre. What does that look like in garden size? 112 feet. I did a square root of 0.3. 112 by 112 feet. That's my square garden. I kept this as simple as possible and divided it into 3 different areas. These aren't proportionally accurate. So you're going to need a 112 or 100 foot by 100 foot, 120 foot by 120 foot garden. That's a pretty big size garden for that amount of output for 10 chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And is this accurate? Yes, it is accurate. I ran through these numbers. I did a bunch of research in feed production.
And just real quick, so he mentioned that the soybean, it offers the protein and what was it, methionine? Which one did you say?
No, you got me screwed up. Lysine?
Oh, lysine. But like the corn and the wheat and the barley and such, that's going to help with the carbohydrates and the energy needs. So these are like
energy. Corn is energy.
It's not a fancy
high quality
meal, but it meets their nutrient needs in this scenario.
Yeah, it's not a high quality mix, but it's a mix that's going to keep them laying eggs and alive. And you're going to need a variety.
Yes.
So issues coming up with production. Another thing I want to let you guys know when you're buying grain, they do mechanical harvesting. Okay, when you're harvesting grain, you're doing what's called hand scale yields or hand harvesting. You lose a lot with hand harvesting versus mechanical harvesting.
Like using a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're using machines, a machine will produce or be able to extract almost, or actually more than twice the amount that you're going to get through hand harvesting.
Wow.
Why is this? Is it just because you're using your hands? No, that's part of it. The machines are the machines are very specifically designed to get every piece of grain, but also mechanically attended soils. You know, they're constantly fertilized and pesticided, sprayed. They're sprayed and treated constantly. The plant density is much greater, okay, on a mechanical field versus a hand field. A mechanical field, the seeds are planted really super close.
Very perfect lines.
And in your hand field, you're going to have less density, so they're fitting more on the piece of property, and they're getting higher yields. They don't have the problem with pests and birds and other things you're going to have on your home garden. So these yields, these hand scale yields, are what you should expect generally. Again, not exactly. Generally, if you're raising and attending to your own property without industrial agricultural practices, which, you know, they're likely still going to exist. The farmers got ate, but the farmers turn into zombies, but the machines still work.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting in here late, my whole scenario was farmers turned to zombies, and the zombies ate the truckers, so there's no food coming.
Mm-hmm.
But the machines still work.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay, that's
So
nice.
you still not
still
getting-
have fuel to run them?
Still, yeah. That's
Details.
another logistical concern.
Details.
Yeah, so going back up here, limiting amino acids and calcium. These are very, very important. If they're not being met by the grains sufficiently, these limiting amino acids, there are alternatives. And really with any kind of contingency planning, you want to establish redundancy, not just have one backup, but have one backup and then one backup and then one back.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? One is none, two is one. So we want to have more than one. Let me see if anybody else comment. Okay. So we want to have a backup. So where else am I getting my limiting amino acids? Well, black soldier flies are an excellent source. Animal sources. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Animal sources. We call bugs animals in this case,
Mm-hmm.
but non-plant forms. So we have black soldier fly and black soldier fly larvae. They do very well, and you can grow those abundantly.
Mm-hmm.
You have to harvest them, means dig them up and strain them out, but you have to harvest them. Earthworms you guys are familiar, if you know anything about casting or producing earthworm castings, or you're doing earthworms for your garden, you can start earthworm tubs to supplement some of these amino acids. They're labor intensive, they take up space, but you can grow them year round and keep them in your basement if you want to do that. And of course, fishy. If you live near a water source, can you harvest fish? Can you net enough out to supplement those needs? That's totally possible, but you have to tend to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about all of this. It's a lot of work. Calcium. Where are we getting calcium? So calcium's not coming from here. It's not coming from your corn or soybean or wheat and barley or oats. So where is calcium coming from? Anybody in the audience, ma'am?
Well, it would have to be another source.
It's a mineral.
Yeah, well, we have your eggshells, oyster, limestone. Now, if they are not getting calcium and they're laying eggs, and the objective here is to keep them laying eggs, they're going to pull some of that calcium from their bones if they're not being supplemented, the calcium. So
they'll start pulling it from, they have a medullary bone, it's in the leg, they start pulling some calcium deposits out of there. In fact, they do that every day, but eventually calcium deposits deplete and the eggs come out soft.
They just won't have eggshells.
And they stop laying.
Yeah.
So where can we get calcium? This is actually an easy one, and I think of all of the things on here, this is the simplest to find. So 10 hens are going to require, they don't require a lot of calcium. So per hen, 0.15 ounces. So,
and that's daily.
A little over, a tenth of an ounce, like very little.
Bad.
But times 10 hens, time 365 days, it begins to add up, and you're looking at about 30 pounds of calcium over the course of a year. Seem about right?
I'm not sure.
It seems about right, because I do the mixing and the 8 pounds of calcium we put in.
Mm-hmm, for 100 pounds.
Yeah, so over a year for those 10 birds, you're going to be getting approximately 30 pounds or so of calcium, 32 pounds if you want to go by the math. So where are you getting it? Yeah, eggshells. I don't know if you're going to get 32 pounds of eggshells. Oysters, if you live by an oyster field, but you shouldn't use oyster shells. They should go back into the bay so the oyster nibs can grow and become adults again.
Mm.
That's why we lost oysters over harvesting, and baby oysters turn into mommy and daddy oysters by attaching to a shell that's already out there in the water. So when we don't throw them back, we deplete the population and they don't have sufficient place to find a purchase for their own growth. Mm-hmm. So oyster shells, excellent form of calcium, although I don't like that one because I like the oysters. They're very good for the ecosystem. Tommy, if you're there, you know this. And limestone. What is limestone? The vast majority, I think 90% of the limestone on the planet are from sea animals. They're from the seabed, from creatures from a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And the majority of limestone we see, is calcium carbonate, is from microscopic animals and corals in the ocean that have accumulated. And that's what limestone is. Most of it, not all of it. Mm-hmm. But limestone is calcium and is a very good source of calcium you can use for your creatures. It's not as bioavailable as eggshell, but limestone, absolutely. And limestone is easy to find and harvest, even if you live in an area without any, because everybody uses it for the driveways. Mm. So you got a long farm, don't let your farmers catch you swiping post-apocalyptic limestone for your chickens.
But the farmers are eating the truckers, so they're not going to argue.
Yeah, so you're definitely going to want to have calcium, and you can source that relatively easily locally from quarry, from digging it up if you know how to identify it, and then smash it. Remember, they do have to eat it. They have to swallow small particles of these to get into their digestive system. Okay, cool. I didn't really look at this notes at all. Caloric input. So let me see if there's anything else interesting I'm missing on this. There is a big thing I want to mention. About this. Another major concern. Now, again, with the whole prepper mindset, you need to, or I hate saying you need to do anything. I don't mean that. It is advisable to take into account the various inputs required for optimal function of whatever system you're trying to supplement or replicate. And in this case, we're doing food production. What is the one thing I did not mention that is absolutely critical? It's very, very labor intensive. Besides, the water. Thousands of gallons in rainfall would be hitting this plot of land over the summertime or the growing season. So the water, how are we doing irrigation? That is a major concern because you're going to be hand walking it. Maybe have hopefully working irrigation systems. We'll assume that's still there because we didn't eat the power plants. But you want to make sure this thing is getting water. Oh God, we flipped halfway. Yep, good old StreamYard did it to me again. Sorry, folks, but good news is we're just about done. And I'm ending on water. Sorry about that. I use this StreamYard streaming service, and it flips me to the side. If you're not watching this, if you're listening, my video gets flipped at 35 minutes for some reason on this disastrous streaming software. But ironically, the YouTube doesn't work natively on the phone. Of all the things, like everything else works. Anyway, water is going to be a major concern, and it's a very heavy item to haul if you have to do it by hand. So you want to find a sufficient irrigation system, rain catchment off of roofs, for example, gravity-fed reservoirs that you can fill up.
Okay. Quail question.
Oh, Johnny, oh, good, yeah, man. Quail question. Johnny Collinsgrove. You know what I did? I forgot to mention the quail in here.
Yeah.
So I did do a quail supplement for how many quail would take your turn. Where's my quail sheet?
I think it is in here. I did read it.
Yeah, I do have the information on quail because I want to give you a good number.
Daily feed.
Oh, okay, right, quail. Daily feed. Quail, of course, being much smaller, but they still have a lot of feed needs. One quail, and this is averages, are consuming about 32 grams or 0.07 pounds, almost 1/10 of a pound per bird. And this is going to be largely human supplied. You can put them in a tractor. So here's the thing with quail in a tractor versus chicken in a tractor system for foraging or scratching. The chickens are much, much stronger. They're much more powerful. They can dig deep into the soil. They can get to insects and roots and other things that quail just cannot. The quail are not going to be as efficient securing food if they're free ranging in a tractor system. Obviously, you're not going to let them just run around because they'll disappear. But if you have them in a tractor, they can get out they can get some calories out of there, but certainly not to the 25-30% rate that you can get with a free-ranging chicken in healthy soil and healthy grasslands. Yeah, anyway, going back. So quail are eating about 32 grams or almost 1/10 of a pound per bird per day. So their annual feed per quail, that's, I don't have a calculator, 25 to 26 pounds per bird per year. And that would be about 260 or 257 pounds. I did all the exact math. 257 pounds of feed for 10 quail. That's 10 quail. That's not a lot of food. You can handle that.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be crushed. The soy also has to be roasted. You can't feed them raw soy either. Same physiology, same problem. What was the other issue with quail? I don't think there was any. I think it was just the whole foraging aspect of quail. And you're not really going to be supplementing their feed very much with tractoring.
Mm-hmm.
They can get some. They can
Right.
get some calories for sure, and they're going to be happy doing their free ranging.
Mm-hmm.
But that's taking away work hours from toiling in the field to grow food for them. So my advice, because I'm not a gardener, like I said, if I was feeding us, we'd be dead. We're starving. But there are gardeners. So that's where, in a bad scenario, you really need to do relationship with your community.
Yeah.
Okay?
The
150
gardeners do the garden, you do the animals, somebody else does the cooking.
200 years ago, people did not live, and they never have lived as just lone wolf. Like, can you imagine that? A town of 20 people, none of them communicating? No, they all worked together,
Mhm.
and they all had their assets and liabilities, and everybody learned, hopefully, to thrive in whatever their asset was that they could offer. So if you don't know how to garden, that's where you get an asset. Somebody who does know how to garden.
Mhm.
I mean, in a bad scenario like that,
Mhm.
gardening skill will be worth more than gold.
Yeah. I mean,
Because that means you stay alive.
Yeah.
Or more importantly, your chickens.
Very quail.
My goal at the end of the apocalypse is keeping my chickens alive. I died for my chickens. That'll be the words out of my mouth. So, does that answer your question? How many quail could 672 pounds? Did he give you? Oh, so let me scale that up a little bit. Do math in my head. 2, 4, 6. So that would be 30 quail. Just about. Maybe about
For a year.
25. I have to do the math. But I did for 10 quail would require 257 pounds. So just do the simple math.
Mm-hmm.
257 times 3. 25, 25, 50, 750. So it's like 771. Is that right? 771 pounds of grain. Sounds about right. No, it's not. That's wrong. 671. Oh, whatever. All right. Cool. All right. So that was for 25 quail. 25 quail would require 260 pounds of feed a year. And the thing with quail, that's what I forgot to mention. Quail love to waste feed.
Oh, yeah. You'd want to have a catcher, some sort of feed catcher.
You definitely are not going to be wanting those quail scooping stuff out and having that pile of feed laying there when you're growing it for them, because then you're growing a lot more. Yeah, so quail, you want to make sure that you have a operating feeder that's not a no waste or no low waste feeder. Cool. Any last remarks about this? No, I don't think so. So we talked about water. Oh, one last very important issue. When the human is out here toiling, they're burning 200, 300, 400 calories an hour if it's hard backbreaking work, doing garden work. And we got to feed the human. And the human's going to be eating this stuff.
Mm.
So their needs need to be met. But you guys, I'm not in any way suggesting that the total collapse would happen. But if you want to supplement these feeds, supplement what they're eating, you absolutely can do that. And I don't like to look at things as an all or nothing at all. I think a lot of times when we go through these kind of scenarios, you think it's 100%. It's either everything or nothing. Asteroid hit and nothing's working. That's never how anything works. It's somewhere in between of horrible and not horrible at all. And you adapt to that scenario. Anything
You didn't
else?
mention the common thought is I'll just feed them my kitchen scraps.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I did want to mention that. Yes. So you can, that's a lot of chicken scraps if you're going to kitchen scraps. Oh, well, I forgot. One other calcium is a good kitchen scrap, which is the other chicken's bones or animal bones. You cook them, crush them, and you make a bone meal. So that is a good form of calcium, and that's a type of kitchen scrap. Is that, I say it right? Chicken scrap. Kitchen scrap. As well as, other meats, fats, and things like that. Just make sure you know what you're giving them. Don't give them the wrong kind of compounds like onion skins, green potatoes, green onions, avocados.
The skins.
Yeah, the skins. So give them the right feed.
But yeah, the kitchen scraps, so they can be fed to the chickens. I mean, maybe the quail too, but that would just be like a supplementary type thing. It would not sustain them. They wouldn't, their bodies would need much, they would need more. It's not all of the nutrients they need. So in this scenario, we're discussing, again, keeping them optimal health. So they're not, emaciated or thin. They're still healthy and they're laying eggs. So if you're giving kitchen scraps, that's fine. But that would just be like a snack. They would need, their other nutrients supplied.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, guys, in a conclusion, and people who just dropped in, we're sideways because the streaming service I use always flips me sideways. In conclusion, these are the big things I wanted to get across here. Obviously, I wanted to get some concept of the acreage or size of land you would need and what its equivalent output would be. So we're talking about 0.3 acres is going to yield us in the growing season about 670 to 700 pounds of grain, depending on how it's planted and harvested. So you're doing it by hand. I wanted to get this across. These are the three main concerns when you're doing this off-grid feeding and you're trying to make sure your needs are being met. The three main components: calories, their calcium, and very important, those limiting amino acids, making sure those needs are met in the diet, the methionine and lysine. Otherwise, they can't build structures at the cellular level. They need these things. They're very important. That's a key to everything else. We want to get those met. Calcium, obviously, for their shell production in their bones, and calories so they can continue doing chicken stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, so three things: how much land we need, what its output is, this three items: calories, calcium, limiting amino acids, and lastly, to get so we have understanding why you just can't let the chickens free range
And expect them to be.
and expect them to lay eggs and thrive,
Mm-hmm.
because they're very different from the birds we were raising 200 years ago. Physically, we have bred them to be high output animals, high energy animals. They need a lot of input to produce a lot of output, which is going to be meat and eggs. We did have animals that did free range, landrace birds. They were chickens. They were domesticated chickens. They were just smaller framed. They did not have high output. They didn't produce 1 million eggs a year. They were only producing a fraction of the eggs. They didn't get big. They have these big meaty bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically semi-feral, almost wild-acting creatures that would just range around. They stayed around the homestead, but they were very low maintenance, and they basically fed themselves. And they were victims to predators. They had high predation. That's another thing that's going to happen if you free range after something crazy happens.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be high predator. Looking at this as from a systems mindset, if you stop delivering feed, the small predators will have less feed for themselves because they eat it from the farm.
Mm-hmm.
They're scrounging around there too. So then the large predators don't have small predators, so they're going to be looking for their patterns. Everything changes. So it's all very interconnected.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, those birds, these landrace birds that 200 years ago were eating on land that was very fertile and full of life, which is very different from land these days that have, for many generations, been farmed or have had chemicals exposure to them, or generally our properties tend to be highly manicured and controlled as far as what we allow to grow on them. So the land that they were free ranging on was full of life.
Yeah, it
compared
was.
to now.
Alex Mock stopped in. Sorry, we're sideways.
Yeah.
You're one of the later people. This streaming service flips me at 35 minutes for some reason. It didn't last week.
No, it didn't.
So, all right, cool. So those are the three things: calories, calcium, limiting amino acids. We cannot free range because these are big, fat, egg-laying animals now, not the scrawny little twig birds from 2
When you
centuries
say we
ago.
cannot, you mean we can't?
We can't feed them entirely just by free ranging.
Yes.
So free ranging your bird may supplement 20 to 30% of their needs, their dietary needs, if it's in an optimal free ranging area. The tall grass, the bugs, access to scratching and getting to all that stuff. So we want to have a very healthy area. You can't just set them in a patch of grass or a piece of mud and expect them to get anything. They get something out of the grass, but a piece of mud. So if your chickens live in a run, they destroy it within a week and it becomes a mud patch. They're not really pulling anything out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're free ranging them or letting them have partial time free ranging, they can supplement some of that food. And that would be optimal. But again, they're opening up a chance for them to get eaten up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, local dog, fox, whatever critter, hawks.
Which that's another thing. The predators available here nowadays is there's a lot more of them as far as like fox, raccoons, the hawks. Because of our way of life and the way we have our garbage and all of that stuff, they are able to live on the outskirts of
You
us.
produce some pretty good garbage. So they can live on that. All right, cool. I think that just about does it. Unless you guys have any questions. In conclusion, hardships come and hardships passes. The thing that needs to adapt is the human being because the conditions are out of our hands. However, we are not. And nothing bad's really happening now, relatively speaking. I mean, people are losing jobs. There's always problems like this.
Mhm.
But in the meanwhile, at any day of the week, because if you're watching this, it means you have a telephone. So any day of the week, you can get on the internet and learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Okay, there's tons of information. I mean, if you guys go back, look at the live videos I've done. I do these videos every week, and they're in depth. Okay, and I'm learning all this stuff. Like a lot of it I know or I knew, but a lot of it I don't. And so I teach myself and I learn and I do a long time of research. Now I know a ton of stuff. So I encourage you guys to
learn, but then
so
also
you can do this stuff.
try to attempt
And
the
do
things
it.
that you
Yeah,
learn.
well, yeah, absolutely.
And so you have experiential, knowledge. Then you're because there's a lot to learn then by doing something.
Yeah, I could talk to you all day about how to ride a surfboard, but
And then when you have
you gotta do it.
disappointments and failures and such, then you're learning the most because you learn like what doesn't work and what does work.
Yeah. So here you could learn how to raise black soldier flies, which are pretty easy. They eat compost.
Yeah, they are.
And they thrive. They even grow in the winter, really, especially in a mild winter because they're down in the deep part of the compost.
Yeah.
So the
They kinda
compost warms up as it's decomposing because of the bacteria in there. They produce heat. That's one of their byproducts of their metabolism. They produce thermal heat and makes it warm. That's why you see steam. And these little dudes, they're active in that area. They're still squirming around in the warmth. And in the winter, they go deeper and deeper and deeper to where if it's no longer active, they're going to go down deep to get away from it. But you can find them there. Earthworms, you can learn how to grow them. Capturing fish in a local waterway. Check your local ordinances. They protect them fish, so don't go netting up a ton of fish without properly knowing if you can do it. But this stuff is neat, and learn how to grow these different things. Corn, soybean, wheat, barley, oats. Are they that hard to grow? What are the soil conditions? I don't know. I'm not a gardener. I didn't go into that. I'm like I said, we starve if I'm left to. I have a lot of skills. I'm going to negotiate and barter for a competent gardener.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do regular city people gardening. I have a little garden in the back. I'll throw some things in and take care of them and get some tomatoes and the regular garden stuff. But seed reap sow. Remember her?
Mm-hmm.
What's her name? Marissa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a gardener.
Mm-hmm.
She's like a top tier gardener.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody used to watch us. Knows a ton about gardening. All right, cool. So this is a good video. It was about 50 minutes long, 35 minutes in the proper orientation until we flipped. I hope this was helpful. I hope some of it made sense or interesting.
Gives you perspective.
How will I feed my chickens after the big collapse? Well, I don't know if I will, but my gardener will.
Yes.
And then really, people are going to be culling if they have a lot of birds. You're going to get rid of them. You can't keep 30 birds. I mean, X this by 3.
Yeah.
Right.
And then whatever other animals.
Total acre of land just for some chickens, for eggs that you can't keep up with, and you no longer have the ability to keep up with. Anyway, it's interesting stuff. I appreciate you guys' questions, stopping in here. If you found this of entertainment or use, even though it's sideways, like, subscribe, or even share this video out. Even though that mean won't be sideways. I'll get some decent equipment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that does it.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thanks for coming in. I am going to go have a drink of water because I've been talking for an hour.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, is that Steve? We deep inside?
Yeah.
Hey, how are you, man? Thanks for coming in. We're splitting. Thanks for being here. Sorry we're sideways now. We're usually straight. I'll see you.